This week on The Destination Angler.
So at lunch, he's got like a half a bar or whatever and gets through and he's talking to the guy. 10 seconds in, the call drops. And I turn around and this guy, full mental breakdown, and crying.
What?
And I was like, is he like sick? Is something happening? And he's like, my life is over. I'm fired. And then I turn back to the front guy and he's just like, chill out. It's okay. And I look back at the back guy. He's breathing into a paper bag, which
What's that
he
do?
brought for the occasion.
Welcome to the Destination Angler Podcast, the podcast for anglers who travel. And I'm your host, Steve Haig. We go right to the source, the local guides and experts, to build your knowledge of top fishing locations around North America. It's a big world out there. Now go and fish it.
I'm going away for a while, but I'll be back soon. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Up next on the Destination Angler, we venture to the Youghiogheny River in western Pennsylvania for a look at this vastly underrated fishery. Then buckle your seatbelts for a trip of a lifetime to Mongolia for the largest trout species in the world, the elusive taimen. And be sure to backcast to catch the last episode on the wild and remote Spatsizi Wilderness in British Columbia. You won't want to miss these shows. Hey, if you like the show, please share it with a buddy and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And today our destination is the Clark Fork of the Columbia River with expert fly fishing guide Andy Simon of the Grizzley Hackle Fly Shop in Missoula, Montana. Once only known as the world's largest superfund site, the Clark Fork offers some of the best match-the-hatch dry fly fishing in the West. About our guest, Andy grew up in Washington State. He joined the USA Fly Fishing program in high school and then guided in Alaska during college. He found his way to Montana, and today, Andy gives a great overview of the best sections of the Clark Fork, prime time of year to fish, and how to break down this big river into fishable chunks, plus top hatches including Skwalas, BWOs, golden stones, and hoppers. We also touch on Rock Creek, steelhead fishing, and some remarkable client moments ranging from stressed out bankers, arguing couples, and a client nicknamed Tail Gunner. Stick around to the end for one of the greatest conservation recovery stories in all of fly fishing. And bonus, how about how to predict a big fish day on the drive to the river? Well, let's hear from Andy. Andy, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Doing great.
Yeah. So you're in a bedroom, it looks like, for you folks on YouTube. So you are a working guide. So you're fishing and sleeping, it looks like, up in Washington State. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What are you doing up there?
I'm guiding for steelhead right now out of Forks, Washington.
Okay. Where's that?
It's way over on the northwest tip of the state. We're just about 40 miles from Vancouver Island.
Wow.
So right up in the rainforest, 220 inches of rain a year.
And you got some rain today, I hear?
We nothing today. We got 5 inches yesterday with winds up to 50 miles an hour.
How'd that work out?
Well, I don't think I've ever bailed my drift boat out so many times.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I had a gentleman who was 6'9" in the front. And so we were big boating down the river, but we caught a couple steelhead. So
you did? Good.
Yeah.
What's a good day up there for you?
Oh, we work for them. It depends on if we're spay or nymphing, but any day, each of my guests gets a hold of fish is a huge success.
Yeah,
that definitely doesn't always happen. So,
how are your numbers?
They're good. These are all wild fish out here, so there's not a lot of great data because the spawn, it starts all the way back in December and goes through actually June. And the state only surveys the second half of the spawn, so they're still working to get the data together. But we feel like the runs are pretty robust and healthy. Definitely some problems with ocean conditions and predation impacting these fish.
Right. Now, are you on rivers with a bunch of dams, or are these free?
No dams. Nope. They're all freestone.
Really?
Okay. And our average system is under 80 miles long from headwaters to the ocean.
Okay. That sounds great. Well, good luck. I haven't done a show on steelhead out west yet, just because you hear all these dismal reports, but that's pretty good. You're getting some hookups and landing some fish every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the habitat's here for sure. It's a challenge, but fortunate to be here with the rivers open.
Yeah, right. Now you've done some guiding up in Alaska too, haven't you?
Yeah, that's how I got my start. I did 7 summers up there.
Cool.
And, that's kind of where a lot of the good stories actually came from.
Yeah, is that
You
right?
just get into some crazy circumstances.
All right, we'll save some of those stories for a little bit later. But let's shift gears and go back to Montana, the subject of the show here. I'm kind of curious if you could kind of dial us into the area and talk about everything but Clark's Fork at first. Just give us an idea. Like, there's some tremendous trout streams in your area, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that drew me to Montana is it seems like every piece of flowing water has trout in it.
I love
And,
that.
each little creek, which is kind of attractive to a wade fisher, you pick a blue line on a map and maybe follow it up to the mountains, and it might be rainbows and browns in the lower stretches, and then
Yeah.
cutthroat, and maybe at the very top there's brookies.
Yeah, cool.
So, we have the Clark Fork, obviously, the Blackfoot and the Bitterroot are the other two main fisheries,
Man, right?
but kind of countless streams and mountain lakes all through the Bitterroot Selway Wilderness,
Hmm.
and then also in the Mission Mountains, which is down on the Flathead Reservation, which is close to town.
Okay. And so can I, if I were to come out west and fish with a guide, fish with you for a couple of days, and then just go off on my own, could I go up into some of these mountain ranges you're talking about and find some great public fishing for
Absolutely.
small stream? Is that right?
And one of the incredible resources is actually the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks website. They list all the stocking info for the lakes,
Okay.
and they list which creeks are open. And, access is pretty straightforward. Most of those creeks are going to have a named trailhead that leads you up them into the mountains.
Oh, nice. Nice. And you've got Rock Creek out now. It's Rock Creek or Rock Creek? How do they say it
Well,
out
that
there?
depends on how long you've lived in the area.
It's Creek, isn't it?
Yeah, some of the longtime Missoulians call it Crick, but I call it Rock Creek, and
Do you?
that receives the lion's share of the wade fishing pressure in the area, but for good
Okay.
reason. It has
Yeah.
actually higher fish counts than some of the major freestone rivers.
Okay. Yeah, how's that fishery doing? So I fished it 10 years ago, then I was out there 3, 4 years ago. I kind of felt like there was a bit of a change. It was more crowded for sure.
Definitely more crowded. I'm not so sure that the fish numbers have gone down. I do think that trout are smarter than we give them credit for. And if they're
Yeah.
all getting caught, even at a smaller size, they're not as readily available.
Just they're smarter. They've been
Yeah,
caught.
we see some challenging fishing midsummer after they've received a lot of pressure where you feel like a hero in June.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You catch them more in June, right after runoff?
Yeah, post runoff, if you imagine they had a month to sort of feed,
Yeah.
fettered with anglers.
Yeah. Now we can talk about the Grizzly Hackle here in a minute. I fished with you guys a couple of times out of the Grizzly Hackle, and my dad, when we first went to Montana in 1994, and my dad used to fish out of the Grizzly Hackle quite a bit, way back when, after the movie. Now the Mercantile is right at the base of Rock Creek. That's kind of a famous little fly shop, right?
Absolutely.
Super
they're
cool. Yeah.
Incredible place. They tie flies specific to Rock Creek.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of lost anymore. You see every shop's got the same flies, and they're great flies. But you have a guy in there who's tying, from the reports he got 2 days before from a guide, and then they're selling out on the day, which I think is
really? Is that right? Okay. Well, they've got that big round table. When you walk in, there's a big round table just covered like 10 inches high in flight time materials. Is that
absolutely
still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where the magic happens.
I thought that was the coolest thing. You walk in there, and I think can a customer sit down and tie a fly?
I'm not sure. I think so.
Okay.
They're so welcoming in there.
Yeah.
And just kind, and it's really, I think it's been a boon for their business. They have some great, and I'm quick to recommend people stop in there before heading up the creek.
Is that right? Yeah, they give information. And the other thing I love about that spot is what's right next door. A great place to eat.
Oh, Elkstrom's. Yeah.
Elkstrom's?
Amazing.
You've eaten there, right?
Uh-huh.
Have you been in there for what? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Oh, all of the above.
Have you? What's your favorite?
Oh God. I mean, just a simple burger,
Really?
You sucker for that. I've had some good memories there at the end of a long day of hunting, chasing around elk, not seeing elk.
Right. Yeah, not seeing elk. Oh no. We had probably, I think I've talked about this on my podcast before. So you guys have listened to all the shows. Apologize if this is a repeat, but I'm telling you, that was the best breakfast I've ever had.
we were heading out the last day on Rock Creek, and we pulled in and I thought this place looks really cool. We walk in there, and it is really cool. And it was so good. Probably just our frame of mind, we were hungry and we actually were staying in a nice cabin, but I thought that was like one of those really cool places that I want to come back to and get another meal there. Super
you
cool.
bet.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So here's a few words I found describing Clark Fork, and there's a Clark's Fork in Montana as well, right?
Yeah, that's of the Yellowstone River, and that's
Yeah.
totally separate. It flows into the Missouri, eventually Mississippi, where this is a tributary of the Columbia
Of the
eventually.
Columbia. It's going to the exact opposite ocean, is what it's.
Yeah, and so
different deal.
the real name is Clark Fork of the Columbia. That's seen in some maps, especially older maps.
Yeah. Yeah. And Clark, singular, as in Lewis and Clark. Yeah. All right. So here's a couple of words I found describing this place: big, slow, flat, turbid, abused, meandering, deceptively fast, and awesome. What do you think about that list?
Yes.
Really?
And there's many missing from there.
Yeah. What else?
I mean, a victory for a recovery effort, a restoration win for the state.
Yeah.
And in some ways, a stronghold of West Slope cutthroat where they were once explorated, especially the upper end of the drainage from Silverbow Creek down.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's cool. Well, what is the headline for you? Like, let's talk about conservation in a minute, because I know that is a big headline. But just in terms of for the angler fishing today, what is the big headline? Like, why come to Clark Fork when they got all these other fantastic rivers around there? Why do people come to the Clark Fork?
Yeah, I think dry flies.
Really?
You can go and fish an indicator a lot of places, but you do not see a lot of people that know what they're doing with them with an indicator on their line there. We can fish a dry dropper, but prospecting with a big dry fly, be it a chubby or a hopper, will give you success. And, that's kind of rare in this day and age.
Yeah. And you see there's a lot of cutthroat in here, you said.
Yeah, and that relates to that. And, a lot of cut bows as well, too, but they're surface oriented. Now, you touched on the word large. Yes, that's true, but it's also very shallow. And so you can find these mid-river rock lanes, little seams, and you can bring fish up. It's not like you're dredging 15 feet deep.
Yeah.
Unless you want to get a lot of whitefish.
Yeah, no kidding. I was just reading an article today in Trout Magazine, and Tom Rosenbauer wrote a really good article about do trout really spend 80% of their time underwater eating underwater? And they've done some research on that. And it's like the research is they spend 80% of the time doing nothing underwater. They're just as readily to go take a bug off the surface as they are to take something floating by them on the bottom. I thought that was like earth shattering for me. I read that today. I sent it to my buddies. I'm like, man, read this, so maybe.
Oh, no, that's great to hear. And, I've definitely read the same thing. They do all their feeding underwater, yet I know people who have really practiced their dry fly game who are consistently catching the larger fish in great numbers.
Yeah.
So,
right. And certain species will come up. I mean, I think a cutthroat's going to come up pretty readily, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we can get into flies in a minute. All right. Well, let's talk about like, where is the Clark Fork? Where does it start?
Right.
It's a long river. Give us kind of a little bit of the top to bottom.
Yeah, just brief synopsis. It really flows off of Butte of the Berkeley Pit Mine, which is the west side of the Rockies there. And it starts at Silverbow Creek.
Okay.
And, the actual Clark Fork, where it's called by name, the Clark Fork originates in Anaconda. And that goes all the way down through Missoula, and that's about 70 miles of water. Okay. And then down below Missoula, it picks up the Blackfoot just above Missoula, the Bitterroot just below Missoula, and then the Flathead. And then it flows eventually into Lake Pend Oreille in Idaho. And that's where it no longer is called the Clark Fork after that.
Okay.
It goes out of Pend Oreille River into the Columbia eventually.
What's it called when it comes out of the Pend Oreille?
Pend Oreille River.
Oh, Pend Oreille River. Okay. Huh.
And that's a massive river.
Oh, yeah. You just named three or four major tribs that came in there?
You bet. And then interesting little fact, below the Flathead, by volume, it is the largest river in the state.
Oh, really? What
Yeah,
are
and that's
flows?
not a long area, and there's not much trout down there, so it doesn't receive a lot of angling effort. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's a lot of water.
But so what are the flows like when I don't know, we want to talk about like from Rock Creek down, like what do flows look
Right.
like?
Yeah, so Rock Creek can almost double the size of the Clark Fork, which can
Huh.
give you an idea of how truly small it is up
Yeah,
above.
that's small because Rock Creek
It's
can be
very
real
small.
small in the
Yes,
summer.
and it has some irrigation problems, just like maybe the Beaverhead would. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, below Rock
Above Rock
Creek,
Creek, it's like it got some ag people pulling
yeah,
water up. Okay, above. All right, gotcha.
yeah, and there's going to be, hay farming all the way down, but it's definitely more intense up there as far as water usage goes.
Yeah.
Uh, and below Rock Creek, the average flow in the summer would be like 600 to 800 CFS.
Okay.
So decent size, floatable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then we kind of call the anywhere above town the Upper Clark Fork.
Okay.
So, and then the lower Clark Fork, which would be town down, is more like 2 to 3,000 CFS.
Oh, wow.
And that would be below the Blackfoot and the Bitterroot, which are major tribs. They each float about 700-800 as they enter the Clark Fork.
Okay. So people are pretty much floating this then from Rock Creek down, would you say?
Yeah, there's going to be wade accesses just at every bridge. We can thank our incredible water access laws for that.
Yeah, I love it. Montana is awesome, right?
But also, fishing the larger river, your wade ability is limited if you're unable to cross.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Huh. And okay, so what about the stuff up by Anaconda when it's a real small stream up there? What's that like?
So I don't fish up there a whole lot. It's just distance-wise prohibitive for my guide day because it's an hour and a half in the car each way.
Okay.
But there's definitely great fishing. It functions as a tailwater.
It does.
It comes out of a couple settling ponds.
Okay.
For the mine. So there's some water quality concerns up there, but mostly wade fishing.
Okay.
And yeah, but I can't speak like really intelligently about that extreme upper section.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so give us an idea. What's the scenery like in the areas that you're fishing? I'm going to say from Rock Creek on down through town.
And I would say most of our fishing does happen Rock Creek down.
Okay.
So from Rock Creek to town, it's in I would say an open canyon. It's hillside sparsely populated with pine, and there's some deciduous trees on the riverbank there. There is the interstate I-90 next to it, but it's far enough away that you're not on it the whole time. You're not hearing it.
Okay.
And it's nice forest. It's not so thickly forested like Washington that you can't see into it. There's some beautiful views that you get. And the riverbed it's cobble, it's smaller rock, so it's pretty open. It's not so hemmed in like maybe the Blackfoot would be.
Okay. Does it have a canyon section?
Yeah, so the most intense canyon is one that we are actually not allowed to guide. It's called Alberton Gorge. And that's a really interesting section of the Clark Fork. It's 20 river miles below town. And there is several class 3 and 4 rapids in that section.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's ran by whitewater guides.
Okay.
And it's a deep gorge. It's a
you don't want to float that then.
No, I have.
Really?
And there is one person that has one outfitter that has a permit to guide it. It's not often used.
Okay.
But it's more of whitewater adventure. There's a lot of big rafts that go through with families, people wearing life jackets.
So it's busy with
it can be in the summer for sure.
Putting all the fish down.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I also read that Clark Fork takes longer to warm up in the summer. So like when maybe water, some streams are hitting 70, the Clark Fork's still doing okay. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know if I could necessarily say that's true.
Really? Okay.
Maybe before the Bitterroot was, so irrigated, but down below town, it will commonly get to 75, 76.
Oh, wow.
And it has got a hoot owl the last couple years.
Below town. Like how far down? Like where the Bitterroot comes in? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times it'll be Bitterroot down, we'll get hoot owl, or town down. Interestingly enough, this year it had hoot owl above Rock Creek first, and then Rock Creek put in a cold shot of water, and then it would go back on hoot owl once it got far enough down Rock Creek to where the temps had an effect.
All right, and when we say town, we're talking about Missoula.
Missoula, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I read on the Grizzley Hackle website that the Lower Clark Fork largest average fish size here is 16 to 17 inches, with opportunities at fish over 20 inches on a daily basis. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't know what Milltown's removal would leave us with, but the biomass is definitely doing well down there.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like you catch a lot of small fish there, and I think they spend some time in the creeks. Now, that's not to say you're going to catch enormous numbers of trout, but they're generally all quality fish, which is exciting, and that's absolutely true.
You said cutthroat. What else you got? Brown trout, right?
Yeah, browns. There's more browns in the upper half, definitely. But there is browns all the way down the Clark Fork. And I'd say it's really rainbow dominated below town with
really?
but also a big mix of cut bows and then what look like pure cutthroat. We're not biologists testing them, but there's the sparsely spotted heavy west slope stripe, and then there's the ones that are spotted all the way through with the slash, which we call cut bows,
the rainbow sides,
and then maybe a fish that's a little more silver, with no slash, that would be, that's a rainbow.
Okay, what's a typical day for you guys, say, when there's some decent hatches going on?
Yeah, depends on angler ability and a few other things, but from 15 to 30 fish.
That's a great day.
Yeah, great day, and with the dry fly too, like if you imagine you're rising a lot of fish, you're not hooking all of them, but there can be some great action.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's cool. Wait, can I ask what your personal best is?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Somewhere north of 30, but
really?
Yeah.
On this river?
But there's also a scenario too where I've learned if you're having some great fishing, sometimes that guest comes back and expects that number every time.
Yeah.
So, we've learned that some days you're scratching so hard to just get a couple fish, but on those very best days, maybe try a different fly or do something a little different, just to keep things a little more consistent.
Can you tell us about your 30-inch fish? I kind of want to hear about that.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about numbers wise. No, I've never caught a 30-inch fish.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about inches. Yeah, no.
30. Yeah. No, maybe just shy of 2 feet for the Clark. Yeah.
Is there one in particular that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, I do remember one. Well, there's two. There's one that we missed that I thought it was actually an otter when we first saw it. It was swimming very slowly towards us, and it chomped down on the dry fly, and the mouth was so wide. I wonder if it was a bull trout. It was a huge fish, and we missed that one. But the same general area, this is about 10 miles below town, we got a rainbow that was just shy of 24, and I'm never going to forget that mouth coming up against the cliff wall straight up sip, and then the fight was on. And that's a good memory. And luckily it ate the big dry fly on heavy tippet, and that one hit the net, thank goodness.
You're popping flies against a stone wall? Is that where they were?
Yeah, at times. Really? It's weird. Some of these walls have little cracks in them, and they make little kind of micro seams off of them. There might be times where, that's the main current, there's a lot of bugs coming down, but they can live on those edges.
Yeah, cool. You ever fish the Smith River?
I have, and that would be an even better example of that. But
it sounds a little bit. I did a show my first year of the podcast. I did a show. Youngblood, what's his first name? This is awful. Anyway, he was talking about Evan. Yeah, do you know Evan?
Of course, he's a master.
Oh, he was a hoot. We went out today with him. We had so much fun with Evan. He was. I don't think he's a nurse now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He got smart.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
No more eating dirt sandwiches in a van down by the river.
Oh yeah.
Somebody else told me that once. I thought that was funny. But yeah, Evan.
No, he's a great guide though. So that's awesome.
He's very funny. And we did a show in the Smith River, and he was talking about popping flies against that huge rock wall all day long.
Yep.
So that's what you were doing. And then there's rainbow took. What did he take? Do you remember?
Oh, what was it? It was a golden stone chubby, which is just a standard fly that we use.
Yeah.
You know, and it
Yeah.
maybe like colored up the belly a little bit with, some marker, which,
Oh,
can help out. I don't know if it actually helps, but it makes you confident, right? So,
well, your
um,
guest is complaining. You give me your fly, you put some markers on, and give it back to him. Okay, try
oh
it out.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter, but the client's happy, right?
yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those days, you can tell certain days they're up and they're happy. We
Huh.
had haze all day, lower light, and that makes a big difference. And it
Yeah.
just felt like a big fish day. So,
Really? No,
yeah.
what's a big fish day? Tell me more about the haze, lower light, like when
Yeah,
it
lower
rained or
light
no?
and maybe more insect activity. Something else I've noticed is steelhead and trout. If I see a ton of birds, if I see a bunch of animals, the fishing is usually good.
Ah, sure.
And then there's other days where we launch and maybe there's high sun or it's a little colder than you expected and just nothing's moving. And
Yeah.
those are the days we oftentimes need to fish deep or just don't catch as many as we were expecting.
Or tell good stories.
Yeah, exactly.
No kidding. So low light, that makes sense. But so like if you're driving to the river and you see some deer standing out in the field, you might think, oh, this is going to be a good day.
I do. Yep. Like there's an old,
Interesting.
hunting tale. Oh, the cows are laying down. We're not going to see, much movement
Yeah.
today. A lot of people put stock in that.
Yeah. What do
You
you
know,
think about that?
there's also so many variables. It's hard to prove anything, but
Right.
that fills me with confidence, and maybe that's just why it goes better those days.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm gonna come off camera just for a second. Andy, are you a history guy? You know anything about Lewis and Clark and all the stuff that went on there?
Yeah, a little bit. I've read Undaunted Courage and definitely respect what
Okay.
they did, but I wouldn't say I'm a history buff.
All right, we'll skip that one. We won't do that. I talk about Lewis and Clark a lot. It's my favorite book next to my Bible. I love that whole uh, Undaunted Courage is a good one. You can get the journals. We'll come back on. We're talking about Lewis and Clark. Just took a little break, and you can get the unedited journals, like it's 600 pages, and it's all the misspellings and everything, and it's just a fascinating reading. So Lewis and Clark came up and down this river system, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. And are there campsites, like they have marked campsites where they?
See, I know of one on the Bitterroot. There's got to be on the Upper Clark Fork because they turned off eventually and went over Lolo, which is
Right.
on the Bitterroot.
Yeah.
But they had to take the Clark Fork through Missoula and then turn left and go up the route.
Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. So how is I mean, in Montana, public access is usually not a big problem, but there are a lot of places for people to take boats in and out along this.
Yeah, there is. And, I mean, I couldn't name them all. There's probably 25 accesses.
Oh,
And,
wow.
that they're all listed on FWP's website, which is,
Yeah, sweet.
incredible. And that's
So,
probably going to be the best resource, for folks. We
yeah,
all have our favorite floats, but,
yeah,
there's trout in the whole thing.
yeah, yeah. How crowded does it get peak season?
Yeah, good question. More so every year.
Yeah. Okay.
And, it's interesting as a guide trying to wade the line between self-promotion and self-preservation.
Yeah. Right.
I would love everybody to fish. I don't claim any more, ownership of anything than anyone else.
Yeah.
But, if there's 45 boats in sight all day, it does diminish the enjoyment of the experience.
Yeah, it does. And that can happen on Clark Fork.
No, not much. I see that more
Okay.
on the tailwaters, the Missouri. It
Yeah.
sounds like the Madison's gotten that way.
Yeah.
People try pretty hard to respect and spread out. We don't
Yeah.
have the fish per mile of some of those rivers on the Clark Fork.
Right.
So, if there's like 6 or 7 trailers at a boat ramp, myself and a lot of other people I know, they'll just keep driving and
Oh,
look for it.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like, I mean, that kind of doesn't sound like a ton of trailers at a boat ramp,
No.
but I guess it just depends on the size of the river.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Huh.
But no, I think the best thing it has going for it is just how long it is.
Yeah. A lot of water.
Yeah, and another scenario that we face is inner tubers, near town. And that's a summertime thing. So like we don't generally fish near Missoula midsummer.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's good,
Yeah.
people watching, and if you want to, find a bunch of beer cans floating down the river, but and
No
we try
thanks.
real hard to pick that up too when we see it.
okay, so let's say, and this has actually happened to me. I walk in the Grizzly Hackle, and you meet your guides. All right, where are we going to fish today? And so why are you taking people to Clark Fork? Typically, what's the story there? How have you worked
Right.
that
Yeah.
out?
Good question. So it may be related to time of year with bug activity. There's
Yeah,
some great mayfly hatches in the
right.
spring and fall there. And then some of it's skill set too. Like the Bitterroot can be extremely technical. It's low, clear water, and it gets a lot of fishing pressure. Maybe we can go to the Clark Fork where there's a little more turbidity, which is not always a bad thing.
Right.
And I don't have to yell at them to cast 60 feet in front of the boat every cast,
6X tibbet. Yeah.
Yeah, we can run 3X and, get away with, a little more of a fun casual day.
So it might be a kind of an easier river.
It is. Yeah. Now
To
I
begin.
wouldn't say it's an easy read
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Just because it's so large, you can spend a lot of time fishing where fish aren't. And I've definitely done that and still do. But you realize, holy crap, there's always a lot in this place,
Yeah.
And that's where repetition on floats helps out. And I think that's the worth of a good guide with local knowledge.
Heck yeah. So are you saying that there are really fishy looking spots in the Clark Fork that just don't hold fish?
For sure. There'll be a nice outside bank with good riprap, and they're just not in there. But maybe there's a ledge over somewhere else where they're always feeding.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. So you've got a river. Like how wide is this river? Like, I know it varies, but about.
Yeah. So I'd say above town is maybe 100 feet wide on
Still pretty
average.
big. Yeah.
Below town, 6, 7, 800 feet.
600. Okay. Let's talk about
I'm talking several, sometimes two minutes to row across.
a couple of football fields.
It can be,
Holy smokes.
No, and I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe 300 feet. But yeah, there's flats where it's super wide.
No kid.
And that's a bit why we have some water temp problems down low.
Okay, because it's shallow too, you said.
Yeah, exactly.
So how have you learned to break down a river of that size?
A lot of that comes from where I grew up fishing on the Columbia, Snake, and Clearwater. I've learned to treat large rivers like small rivers.
How so?
It's really easy to get overwhelmed, but if you slow down and look, character will emerge from those large spots. And it might be one seam that continues longer than you expected. It might be 3 boulders in the middle of a featureless patch, and they're always going to be there. They have to,
Yeah.
So you just learn to break it down, go slow. Something that's helped me out too, if I fish left down a bank 4 times and don't really get them, I'm going to go right the next time, even if I don't, it looks good.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to find some little thing like, oh, there's fish in every hole. You know how it is.
Yeah.
But we don't always approach them correctly.
Right. I read that there are pods of fish. Like this is typical. Sure. They pod up
Very
in
typical.
this river. Huh. Yeah. Say a little bit about that.
A lot of those pods are related to bug activity, where they might live in a nice sheltered area, and then when there is PMDs, trichos, whatever, hatching out, they're going to group up and feed.
Because of the hatch?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a pretty straightforward thing where, they're rising, so you keep your eyes out.
Okay. Huh. And you get to know, hey, we've got some PMDs coming off. They like gravel. We need to head over to this, whatever. I don't know if they like gravel or not, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Like maybe the head of a riffle, or it's July 10th and it's 10 a.m. They're starting.
Yeah. So can river's too turbid to see them in there, but there's a pot of fish in there. Is that how you?
No. I mean, you'll definitely, you won't see the fish necessarily. You can if it's high sun, but you're going to see those rise forms.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay.
Because a lot of it is slower water. It's not like a racing riffle where you can't decipher what's going on. Okay. You could see each rise form, and there might be 12 fish in a certain area, and the challenge is picking one, making the right drift to it.
Screw it up.
That's a lot of fun. Sometimes you sit on anchor, you're changing flies, and I'm shaking, the guess is shaking, we can see the head tail rise. That's a big one, feed line, reach mend, all that.
Oh man, I remember, gosh, I was fishing in 1993 or 4 with my dad on the bighorn.
Yep.
I remember there was a guy in a side channel, and there was a bunch of rising fish in this tiny little side channel. And I watched this guy, just like an expert, pick them off. And he pulled a good 24, 26-inch brown trout out of there doing that. And I just thought, but he did it, and he didn't put the whole pod down.
That's
And,
impressive.
Right. So how's that possible? Have you figured that one out?
It depends on how the pod sets up, but sometimes there's like a front fish or an outside fish that you can focus on first.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've been surprised with, and this is not just the Clark Fork, just trout in general, if there is enough bugs and you're patient, they will start feeding again.
Like how soon? 20 minutes?
Sometimes as soon as like 5 minutes or 2
really?
minutes. Yeah, wow. But if you think about it, you've came there to fish dry flies for your day. What's 10 extra minutes sitting there?
Yeah.
And if they don't come up, you move down to the next pod. But they have what each hatch is maybe an hour to 2 hours for like the mass amount of bugs coming through. They gotta feed, Yeah.
They're gonna come back up, take advantage. So you work the edges of the pod. So where's the biggest fish in the pod? He's in the best spot, right?
So yes, usually. And sometimes there'll be a solitary, very large fish that's away from the main pod.
Okay.
And some of those they look so small because they rise with just a dimple.
Yeah, right.
And maybe they're inside in even shallower water. They're oftentimes in a spot that's really hard to get a dead drift to.
Yeah, of course.
And I maybe this is just in my head, but I really think that they move into those places because they don't get thrown at,
Yeah, right. Yeah, they know.
And every once in a while you get lucky and catch one of those fish. A lot of these rainbows and cutthroat have some scarring on their jaws, and you'll get that very biggest fish. It'll be clean.
Not a really?
Scale on a place you're like, oh, okay. I finally caught the one that doesn't get caught.
Super interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Do you ever just go, you know what? I've got to throw a cast in. I may lose my rig, but I don't care. I'm throwing it in there. I got to try for this guy.
Oh, absolutely. You know.
Yeah.
I love taking risks. It makes it fun. Guest all jazzed up,
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, got a bunch of other stuff I want to talk to you about. But I kind of wanted to get into your story a little bit because let me see. You got an English degree. Nice, Steve. You have an English degree.
I've done read good, Steve.
I ain't got an English degree. Let's put it that way. From University of Montana, there in Missoula.
Yes, sir.
And you're a fishing guide.
Yep.
How'd that come together?
Right. Well, I just was always so drawn to water. I grew up with a spring-fed pond in my backyard. It was my neighbor's, and he graciously let me fish it. And I was just enchanted by that world. I always loved reading.
Where'd you grow up? Walla Walla, right?
Walla Walla, Southeast Washington. Right. Yep, right in the Blue Mountains.
Okay, I got you. Yep.
And, my mom was always encouraging me to read. My parents are both, educated. My dad was a professor. My mom's a psychologist.
Oh, okay.
So,
very good.
Then the expectation was, you're going to go to college. And she saw that I would always read if she got me books about fishing. So, maybe this backfired on her eventually. But
that didn't work. It did and it didn't.
A hungry reader. So,
yeah, that's great.
And actually, started off in the journalism program. And as I met more of the English professors, I was really impressed with the quality of the writing department. And I was actually creative writing.
Really?
Writing, yes.
Okay.
And, they had some very strong ties with the environmental studies and Native American studies programs.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a definite reverence for nature in that program. So, I did some environmental writing, still do a little bit of that time to time. And just, I kind of felt a little bit more supported and, intrigued with that.
Yeah, I can see how they could come together. So you're an environmental studies minor then.
Environmental studies minor and then English creative writing major. I just went to a bachelor's and
party.
Well,
bachelor's bash.
Yeah. And I started guiding during freshman year of college in Alaska.
Oh.
Did that all through and then once I graduated, I started to do steelhead over in Washington in the winter.
Good.
yeah, I just found that I could support myself in a way that I enjoyed through
Yeah,
guiding. I met a
yeah.
lot of very fascinating people that I would never meet otherwise, fostered
Huh.
some good relationships, and met a lot of peers and people who have taught me so much. I have an incredible amount of respect for the local guides around Missoula, to watch some of these masters who've been doing it 20, 30, 40 years and
Yeah,
just how they operate. I'm like, wow, okay, I've got a lot to learn.
yeah, yeah. There's an author in Missoula. He wrote a book called Pale Morning Dun. You know that guy?
I
Great,
don't, I've heard of that book though.
great book. I read it a long time ago. He's a really cool book. Anyway, I think he's a professor at University of Montana. I don't know. He lives in Missoula last time I checked. But anyway, oh, you authors. Are you going to try to write something someday? You going to write some articles, try to write a book someday?
I've thought about it. Like I've tried to kind of, I think one of the easier ways to be published is some of these tell-all articles, about, this is the fly and this is, the place and all that. And I
Yeah.
kind of always edged a little more towards just like, what's the enjoyment in writing? Like really respected John Garrick's take on
Yeah.
things.
Right.
You know, he's funny,
Very.
super humble, obviously a great angler, but maybe he wrote more about why we fish than, how we fish.
Yeah. Right. That's a great, really good distinction there. And he's written dozens of books, hasn't he? He's
Yeah,
super
and done
prolific.
really well.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one of the
Interestingly
best.
enough, one of his first books was a how-to book, small string
Oh,
fly
really?
fishing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No kidding. Oh
So
my
he's got
gosh.
the chops for it.
So growing up in Walla Walla, is that in high desert? What's that like?
Yeah, it is. It only gets like 12 inches of rain a year. But it does edge up against the Blue Mountains. And there's several creeks and rivers that come out of the Blues that have healthy Columbia Basin red band trout, which is a rainbow trout.
Yeah.
And it's not an introduced fish, it's a native fish. They're amazing. They can deal with water temps up to 80 degrees.
I didn't know
Um,
that. Huh.
yeah, they have a lot of hemoglobin in their blood. They can do low oxygen, which happens with warm water. So, grew up fishing for those, and there's some bull trout in the upper end of the drainages, and then
Cool.
steelhead.
Yeah. No kidding.
But it didn't have the Missoula quality fishery. It would get hot in the summer. There's no floatable rivers. So,
Okay.
I was hungry to see what Montana was all about.
Okay. Um, what did you do for fun besides fishing when you were a kid?
Right. Oh boy, not a whole lot. Wandered around in the mud. I'd always be catching snakes. Had a
Yeah.
praying mantis as a pet. That was a lot of fun. Feeding her grasshoppers. I played baseball and tennis too.
Oh,
Up
good.
through high school.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the sports and the team mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super
Halfway,
cool.
halfway through high school, though, I started to do the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team in
Yeah.
the
Right.
summers, and that took a lot of the time that otherwise would be occupied by sports.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was a great learning experience. I think moving forward, I don't feel like my fly fishing needs to be competitive anymore.
Okay.
But it was an incredible vehicle to meet a lot of good connections in the industry.
Mm.
And also just learn some amazing techniques. Like the French and Czech team would basically trade for first and second each year that I participated, and watching those guys fish and rig and everything it
Yeah.
was like they're robots.
Yeah. Right. Did they did a little better than USA team back then?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it's the USA team is really strengthened, but there's kind of a pedagogy among the French and Czech teams that the winners of the adult event would train the youth, and it was something that was
Yeah.
very, a lot of time was invested, and it
Yeah.
showed.
I
So
think they won in Bosnia last
I
summer.
believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Josh Miller was their leader over there, and they won.
that's
So
amazing.
they've done better. Um, so what kind of techniques you learned? The Euro style
Yeah, the
nymphing, that's the
Euro
main thing.
nymphing, you can't
Okay,
use an indicator. And a lot of refined lake fishing techniques too.
okay,
With different lines, intermediate line, and this full sink, type 7 line with a floating fly over weed beds, just stuff that was not even on our radar.
yeah. You're carrying 3 rods with you down to the river or the lake, that
Or
kind of
like
thing.
9 rods.
Oh, sure, really? So you just switch really fast?
Yeah, lots of different
Yeah.
setups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so torn on that competition thing because people who do it really just talk about what you said. You just get so much better, and some people get really juiced up about this. But man, I kind of like to relax when I go fishing.
I'm so with you. And I'm always in the pursuit of the best technique, but
Yeah.
the way to win those competitions is numbers of small fish. And
Oh, really?
so sitting there with a dry fly on the edge of a pod, like we just talked about, that just juices both of us up, is
Yeah.
maybe not the way to win one of those contests.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you got numbers will win it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like and don't quote me on this, but it
Yeah.
seems like, 2 or 3 8-inch fish will beat a 15-inch fish, and you catch 20 small grayling and you're in the winning,
That doesn't sound right. I mean, I believe you. I'm just saying it just seems like kind of messed up. Like got to
Right.
be a different way. So what did your parents think when you said, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a professional guide"?
Well, there was definitely some back and forth. My dad is a musician by trade, and
Cool.
his father was a doctor. His older brother was a doctor. His younger brother's a lawyer. He was kind of the iconoclast of the family. So he was like, "Heck yeah, Andy, get what you like." And
Oh, good. Yeah.
absolutely. And my mom, I think, was a little more hesitant just because, like any good mom, she wants her son to have a stable, reliable job,
Yeah.
and maybe one that doesn't leave you, hunched over and barely able to move after 20 years of rowing.
Yeah.
So, but she saw my love for it. And my mom actually lives in Missoula now. I take her fishing every day on Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah. Good.
I shouldn't even say I take her fishing. We go fishing because she is a stick.
Oh, yeah. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She caught 6 steelhead a couple years ago when we went out. And I watched her get a 2-foot brown all on her own. She walked up a little side channel.
She's good.
So
yeah. She's good.
She's
good.
Good.
That's really cool.
She's a predator.
So you just turn her loose. The predator.
Yep.
That's
so
awesome.
that's cool. And she loves it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So no hate, and I don't ever call them begging to get bailed out of jail or to pay a credit card bill, at least not yet.
Okay.
So
it's working out for you. It sounds
it's working out so far. Yep. And
I
have my happiness, and that's what matters.
Yeah, right. And speaking of happiness, what makes you what do you love about guiding? I mean, what keeps you in the guiding game?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Being able to support yourself is an important thing, but eventually that is not enough. It's the people that you meet. Some of these folks would never get on a river otherwise. I'm going to remember a corporate trip we took for Outback Steakhouse, and we had a lady who was absolutely terrified to be on the water. I don't think she'd ever been on a river before. She was clutching the seat of my drift boat, and we did a stretch of the lower Clark Fork that is like a lazy river. Like you could have dog paddled the drift boat all the way down and been safe, no worse. So she didn't fish for the first hour, and then after that, she was loving it, hooting and hollering. She caught
really?
Yeah, we ended up just using the Pat's rubber legs under a chubby, and she caught a couple trout right at the end, and it was one of my most memorable days.
Really? Just gave you some joy out of that, huh?
Absolutely. She didn't even want to go, and her friends talked her into going.
Really? Could she not swim?
Yeah, it was a corporate trip they're paid for,
Okay,
and she was like a manager, not from the West.
Yeah. I took my team skeet shooting one time, and a couple of the ladies didn't really appreciate that too much. So this is my day job. What other kind of wonderful client moments have you had through the years? Memorable fish or people you really enjoyed?
Well, I want to talk about a couple that I guide, Greg and Linda, all the time. And Greg is a lifelong sportsman. He's in his 70s and fished and hunted and partied. And
is that right?
Yeah, he had 2 buddies that he ran with, for his whole fishing and hunting life. And he tells me, he goes, "Andy, they're not around anymore." And really? Linda saved me.
Too bad.
And this is a woman that he met who was not into the outdoors, but she kind of straightened him up. And then he introduced his love of the outdoors to her. And I remember when I first fished with her 5 years ago, she didn't even really want to cast. She just wanted to have Greg fishing. Now she sits in the back of the boat and will outfish him. Another guide named her Tail Gunner because she's so good out of the back.
Tail Gunner, that's great.
Tail Gunner, yeah.
From the back of the boat.
From the back of the boat. And
that's hilarious.
they used to come midsummer when we could fish droppers. Now they come in the fall for streamer and dry flies.
Okay.
And they just came out here and steelhead fished with me last week. But just listening to Greg talk about how Linda turned it around for him was that's what it's about. you know.
Do you ever feel like you need a couch in your boat just to listen to people and have them tell them their life stories?
Oh man. So I mean, and maybe you can relate through some of the work you've done, but some days I'm the cheerleader, some days I'm the counselor, some days
Yeah,
I'm the mediator.
really, the mediator.
Well, one of my
Really
very first guide trips in Missoula, husband and wife show up. She puts in headphones and sits in the front of the boat. He tells
sulking.
me, taps me on the shoulder that they had a little argument,
Oh,
and she didn't talk to either of us all day.
oh,
And I was like very new. Maybe this was like my fifth guide trip ever for trout.
oh man, what have I
And we
done?
got to the takeout. This was on the lower Clark Fork. And I ended up having to tap her on the shoulder. Hey, we're all done with the day. I don't
Really?
know if you've ever tried to just fish someone out of the back of the boat, which is where he was, but my
No,
neck,
I would have switched.
she
I
wouldn't.
would- She would not.
She would not.
Really?
Nope. And I left it at that. Maybe now I would have spoken up, being a little older and a little ruder, but I was already terrified, to be
That's
honest.
funny.
That was a funny one.
Were you the one? Did you tell me a story about a couple of bankers? What was that? Wasn't that you? Thought I had a.
Oh, the fella had a panic attack.
Yeah, yeah. What was that all
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, that's a little more intensive, but if you're ready, I'm happy to share that
Hit
one.
me.
Okay. So it's a group of fellas that had fished around Missoula quite a bit, and they knew the rivers well. And it was midsummer. I said, "Hey guys, let's go up the Blackfoot, a little bit colder water." And one of them pulls me aside and said, "Hey, I have a very important phone call with my number one client. I got to make around noon." And I go, "Hey, no problem. Why don't we go to the Clark Fork or maybe the lower part of the Bitterroot where we have great cell service?" He goes, "No, I really want to go up there with everybody to the Blackfoot." So we end up in the wilderness corridor, and he goes, "No problem. I have a sat phone."
Oh,
And I'm thinking back to my Alaska days of like bad weather or when we're in a canyon where they don't always work, you
yeah,
know.
right.
And he's like messing with it, and we have signal in the morning, and then down we go into the canyon,
Now
and
the
there goes the signal. So at lunch, he's got like a half a bar or whatever, and gets through, and he's talking to the guy. 10 seconds in, the call drops.
oh,
And I turn around, and this guy, full mental breakdown, he's crying. And yeah, I was like, is he like
what?
sick? Is something happening? And he's like, my life is over. I'm fired. And then I turn back to the front guy, and he's just like, chill out. It's okay. And I look back at the back guy. He's breathing into a paper bag, which
What's that
he
do?
brought for the occasion.
What is that? Wow, that's a stressed out guy.
I felt so stressed out because it's the guide's responsibility to deliver home to happy, healthy customers,
Yeah, right.
you know.
That's
And
like rule number 12B or something in the guide
oh
handbook, I think.
yeah, but you get paid more when they both come home with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, double the tip.
you got it. So yeah, we fished out the rest of the day, and my mom, being a counselor her whole life, she told me that I had some type of guilt that was related to that. She had a college educated name for it.
Oh,
But
she did. Like what
yeah, I
you
was
were
so
feeling
tired.
what you were feeling because of that
Oh,
moment.
I was feeling terrible, and there's nothing I could do to change his mood. He didn't make a cast the rest of the day.
Oh, he really did shut down.
No, he was done. He mentally was out. He looked white as a ghost, didn't eat his lunch.
What?
And I just fished the front guy the rest of the
Oh,
day. And the front fella shared a really cool story. He was also, in the finance world.
yeah.
And he told us that, hey, I was playing tennis about 5 years ago, and I had a heart attack on the court, and it was because of stress. And then and there, I changed my life and my
Oh,
interactions with work. I thought, man, this poor guy in the back, maybe his bank account might have some more commas in it than mine does, but
yeah.
who's richer?
Yeah. Great point.
Oh, and
Exactly.
it's hard to know the right path in life, but I ended up feeling really bad for that guy, and knowing that I will never hopefully put myself in a situation where work is that important. I mean, the safety and the fun of
Yeah.
the day, always important. But if it's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, I
never going to
agree.
breathe into a paper bag over guiding.
Well, if you're heading to Montana, where were they from? Like out east somewhere?
Oh,
Or
no, it's somewhere out east,
somewhere.
definitely.
Okay. So you're going to Montana, I think with the goal to relax. I don't know. If you're
Yes,
going to
sir.
go fly fishing for
Absolutely.
a day, the goal is to relax. And so you set up I don't know, I would try to like not do client calls. You know what? A couple, not very often, but sometimes I'll go into the high country and, no one can reach me. And that's why I'm doing it. I want to be off the grid. I don't want to have to worry about, I don't bring my computer. You know what I mean? I'll have my cell phone with me, but yeah. And that's what it's all about. You know, that's a
Well
real
said.
vacation. And don't you think? I mean, when you can actually
Yeah.
unplug completely from this world, that's when you actually are on vacation. If you're taking phone calls and having all your buddies wait for you while you're finishing writing an email somewhere, and it's like, let's just go on vacation. I don't know.
You got it. Even yesterday, I had a guy who's a major construction kingpin in California. He has like 100 mil of payroll a month or something just insane.
Wow, you got me.
And they have a lawsuit, as construction companies always do right now. He forgot his phone in the room yesterday morning, and I offered to turn around because we were just out of the driveway. And he goes, "Nope, I don't want that thing today."
Oh, really?
And how, and like he's a big dog, and he had some ramifications for that. But in that moment, he wanted to fish. And I said, you know what? That's work-life balance, even though he has stress.
And you got to pick I don't know. It's hard, but find a company that will put up with that. Not even put up with the rules. It says, okay, that's good. When you go on vacation, I want you on vacation. Not like, hey, don't go too far because I might need you. You know what I mean?
Well, and I want to speak a compliment about the Grizzly Hackle. They are very supportive of us taking time off, spending time with family. I'm going tarpon fishing in May when I could be guiding.
Yeah, are you?
And I'm paying my friend to take me fishing and yell at me. So
okay.
And they were all for it,
Yeah. That's I was going to ask you what does a guide do on vacation? You go fishing.
Yeah, but to places where I don't, normally fish. And I love being guided. It gives me some insight on how I can refine my approach, and also like another set of eyes to fix all of my crappy casting and saltwater. I don't know how to saltwater fish. I can strip set and double haul a little bit, but
okay,
a whole different game.
Are they yelling at you? No trout set, strip set.
Yeah, or like rod low, or
oh yeah. Do you forget
11 o'clock? How not see those fish? And they look at them every day, they forget.
I mean, like your first day, you're like trout setting, and it's like, oh crap, I'm missing fish.
Oh, I mean, there's always buck fever.
Buck fever, yeah.
Fish trip, but we'll see when that 100-pound tarpon's in front of you, open its mouth, how it goes.
So, what's your favorite time of year to fish on Clark Fork?
That's a great question. On the Clark Fork, I would say fall cool down.
Oh, really?
And you can't put a date on that. It could be as early as September 10th or into October if we're having a summer that hangs on.
Yeah.
But there's a time where the trout, they know winter's coming and they start feeding better. There's a streamer bite that happens then.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the terrestrial fishing is actually better when that water cools down. The fish get a little more active.
What, in October?
Yeah. Oh, we fish hoppers all the way through the first frost.
Oh, you do? Okay.
My best hopper day was October 14th last year. I looked back on my logs.
Really?
Couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like everywhere we threw it, there was 2 where there used to be none.
Wow.
It was a water temp thing. And there was haze in the air too. I really think that's important. A lot of local guides love wildfires. It's horrible for your lungs, but we call it artificial clouds.
Haze, you're talking about wildfire haze.
Like fires that bring smoke and they keep the light level down.
That's what you meant when we started talking about haze earlier. I thought you were talking about, like fog or something.
Yeah, no, it can be fog too. Or sometimes it's like maybe farmers are burning their fields, or there's a lot of like hay harvest going to just put some particulate in the air just to cut that sun down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see how much time we got. We got about another 15 minutes. Can you kind of break down the seasons for us? Like, what are the major hatches that anglers should know about in times of year, that kind of thing?
So, we don't do a lot of fishing before late March on the Clark Fork. But this first couple hatches are going to be the blueing olive, and the Skwalas stonefly. Now, the Skwalas is most famous on the Bitterroot, but it occurs all through western Montana. And it usually pops in April on the Clark Fork. Sometimes it happens during runoff, but if you get a little lucky and runoff is slow, we'll have some good squala fishing there.
Okay.
And then with the Skwalas come the March brown. Which it's a large mayfly, a 12, and we see them more in April. So you got that, and then you're going to lose the river in May through sometimes all the way in the end of June. Runoff is long there. Right after runoff, there are some salmon flies on the Clark Fork. It's not a hatch you can count on, but they're definitely there. And that goes right into golden stones. And the golden stone hatch is pretty solid. That's about the first 15 days of July, if you had to generalize. Now, you got to remember that's going to slide on when runoff and water temps are.
Sure. Yeah.
And right kind of at the end of golden stones is pale morning duns. And those will hatch sporadically all summer. Seems like July is the best month, but we see them in August. You know, the rusty spinner, which is a PMD spinner, is a great fly in August. And then, you know, that kind of bumps into terrestrials, which, you know, hoppers, ants, beetles.
Sure.
Goes all the way to fall mayflies, which are mahoganies and blueing olives.
There you go.
You know, there's a couple smaller mayflies, the trico, and then another one called a pseudo that hatch, you know, like early fall. And that can provide some very frustrating fishing too, but if you're willing to go slow and fish on pods.
Why is that frustrating? What's frustrating?
The flies are so small.
Okay.
So trying to see your bug versus natural insects.
Tons of them, yeah.
Finally hooking a fish and then losing it because it's a size 22 fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
And it's also frustrating because if there's enough of those little bugs, that's all they're eating.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a game with little drives, it's going to be a long day.
Really? Yes, they're keyed in on that.
And I've learned that, you know.
Yeah. So what are your, you know, your go-to, do you have some local ties, some go-to local ties that you really like?
Yeah, so we've got a really great group of flies coming out of actually the Upper Bitter. There's the Purple Haze, which is a famous fly by a tire Andy Carlson up there.
Okay.
Great upright parachute mayfly. We use another one called the Brindle Shoot, which is by Chuck Stranahan, and that's also out of Hamilton. But that's just a great general mayfly and caddis. So those are two just kind of standard mayflies. You know, and then we get a ton of mileage out of the chubby Chernobyl, you know, as the rest of the West does.
What color?
As a hopper, as a stonefly.
Yeah. What colors do you like?
A few different colors. I really like that golden color. Is kind of a good all around. Brown is good. There's another one just called the Terra Narcissus, which is the salmon fly, and that's kind of like a gold, rusty orange. And that's good general bug. Yeah. And then we use green ones too, like when there's hoppers around.
Yeah.
You know, they'll hit them, and sometimes when it's hot as heck, you put on a red one and it works. So I was telling people, just try the different colors, and they can see color. They really can.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You know,
do you find color, like they'll key in on a certain color on one day and then the next day they're not?
Yeah. Yep. And like maybe if it's like cloudy, they want like the purple chubby that everybody uses, you know. But then in the sun, they might hit a peach a lot better.
Huh.
So I prescribe to the light fly, bright day, dark fly, dark day.
You do, okay.
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever drop anything off the back of those chubbies?
Oh, yeah, a lot. And that, you know, that depends on the angler and what they're wanting to do. But, you know, our general nymphs would be the pheasant tail and the hare's ear. Tungsten is great, just general attractor mayflies. And you don't have to get super technical on the Clark Fork. Just because there's always some watercolor. And then the Pat's rubber legs, you know, or the girdle bug.
What sizes?
Oh, gosh. 2 through 14.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, but average would be about an 8.
Okay. Depends on probably what's coming off.
We use some really big ones when the flows are high, just so they'll sink enough.
Yeah.
Like a 4, you know, or I have used 2s. But yeah, the 8, 10, and then like in a 12, they eat it as a mayfly nymph too, sometimes, or a little micro crayfish. So I play around with size a lot.
Oh, do you?
If I know there's fish there and I'm not getting them, I'll change flies like quite a bit until I stumble on a pattern or hit the boat ramp with my tail between my legs.
So how long will you cast a fly, you know, and before you switch it out?
Right. I mean, it depends on the day, but if I feel like I just went through 200 trout and nothing ate it, I'm going to change.
Yeah.
So that might only be like 5 or 6 casts, because let's say you have a long bank, throw it in, mend, row it out 200 feet, don't get a take, hook bottom at the end of the bank.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll row back up with a new bug, it hits the water and you've got one before they mend.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, that was wrong the first time.
Right. You ever just go completely different, or do you just kind of go, okay, I need to go up a size, down a size, smaller, lighter
No,
tippet?
you might go through progressions like, okay, I'm going to try a mayfly nymph. That's not working. I'm going to run a
Okay.
caddis.
Yeah.
That's not working. I'm going to put a big stonefly on.
Yeah.
That's not working. I'm going to put on a general attractor like a blowtorch or some of those flies that
Yeah.
are popular in the competition,
Paragon.
bright tag, dub body, CDC collar, and a big old bead. Who knows
Yeah.
what it looks like? Maybe it looks like everything.
Right. It's like a
But
woolly worm. You ever use
yeah,
a woolly worm up in an alpine lake?
yeah. I
They work
mean,
really good.
we nymph buggers sometimes too. That works great.
Yeah. Kind of jig them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done really well on woolly. I always take woolly worms with me when I go to alpine lakes, and no one can tell me what the heck a woolly worm is in that lake, but they catch fish.
That's cool.
Your little
Looks
red
like
tail.
food.
Yeah, it looks like food, right? The trout just can't stand it. You got to do it. Um, what are there any styles or tactics of fly fishing that you guys are doing that you find works particularly well there on Clark Fork?
Yeah, I mean, a style that I don't see a lot of other places in Montana is anchoring up on sided rising fish.
Okay.
And, not just like power fishing down banks, like going slow.
Yeah.
And that takes a practiced angler and a lot of times just fishing out of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
But you can catch some large fish like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I want to get to actually before we go? I kind of forgot about this, but I want to hit on the conservation story because that kind of part of it, that is one of the big stories about this fishery, isn't it? I mean,
Oh, it's the story.
yeah, let's hear it. Tell me about it.
And I don't know the full details. We could talk for hours on that, but I got to college during 2008 when they breached Milltown. And a lot of the local guides and anglers I respected said the Clark Fork's done. There was almost a full fish kill below Milltown when they breached it because sediment containing mining toxins washed all the way down the drainage.
Okay,
And
so
it
give
took
us
the
the
bugs.
background. So Milltown was a settling pond for the big mine in Butte.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
It was an earthen dam just above Missoula. Essentially, where the Blackfoot came into the Clark Fork was the dam, and there was a reservoir above it,
Okay.
Milltown Reservoir.
Yeah.
And it was 100 years. It was built in 1908.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they pulled that out. Didn't they think that there's a bunch of mining sediment in there that's going to ruin this river?
Oh, they knew, and they did an incredible amount of dredging efforts
Okay.
pre-removal.
Huh.
But there was more sediment than they anticipated.
Gotcha.
There's still some sediment, but we were blessed with a couple of years of incredible snowpack post-removal, especially 2012, and the river came back quicker than many people were expecting. Maybe it's not back to the 1980 levels of fish jumping all over the place, but those are always the good old days you hear about.
Huh.
The bug life is definitely coming around. And I want to give a shout out to the Clark Fork Coalition and the West Slope chapter of Trout Unlimited, which is the chapter in Missoula, for the work they've done to keep water in the river. And that's number one.
Keep water, like dewatering from ag?
Yes, dewatering will, change the bug kind of demographic to more annelids, less mayflies, less caddis, less stoneflies. Cold, clean water, with riffles and oxygen, that's where the bugs come in. And you know what trout do when bugs are around? They increase in number and size.
Yeah, right. And it's the largest superfund site in the country?
It is. Right? Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Some of that's because of the length of it, but Berkeley Pit Mine is the largest mine in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're still mining there. And in the settling ponds in Anaconda, they're actually going through the tailings now and processing them, getting more precious metals out of those tailings, additionally filtering those tailings to improve the water quality in the future.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, technology is a lot better than it was 100 years ago when they're mining. So they're finding ways to mitigate what's been done. It'll always be a problem.
Yeah.
But it does seem like there's a major recovery that's happened, from 15 years ago where it's like, oh, there's not going to be any more fish on the Clark Fork. So now there's guides down there every day and people who go and wade fish and have a great time,
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I remember years ago, fishing with you guys and walked in the store and they were like, well, we think we should fish Clark Fork today. And I was like, what? I'm not, no, I don't want to fish that. I heard it's, oh, it's doing better. It's doing better. We ended up fishing somewhere else, but kind of wish I tried it, because I've really I've never fished it. I read that Butte was either the largest or the wealthiest city in the West, like in 1890. Like it's a boom town from this mine, right?
Yep.
Yeah, big copper mine. Yeah, in 1900. Anyway, so a lot of great organizations working on that conservation effort, and thank goodness that river has come back, and we've got guys like you who can take us on a trip, and people enjoying themselves fly fishing. Fantastic. What a great story. Yeah, cool. All right. So always like to ask people a couple questions about food at the end. So what's your favorite shore lunch? What do you like to feed your clients?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot more cooking lately. And I love to grill either some salmon or burgers on the river.
Oh, really good.
Yeah, and and that's maybe not when it's 100 degrees out. Then we order sandwiches from Tagliere Deli, which is about the best sandwich I've ever had. That's a local deli in Missoula. There's 2 locations and just incredible. You can order online. It's ready. You pick it up.
Yeah.
And yep, fresh baked bread. Oh, so good.
So we got a little hibachi with you in the boat. What do you do?
I just bring a little Weber with some propane, and I make those burgers the night before, and or salmon if I really love you.
Those good customers get the salmon. Just remember that if they hire
and there might be a couple chairs that snuck their way into the boat, and
okay. Do you do the little table and the tablecloth and all that stuff?
Yeah, I do sometimes. I have a drift boat with a nice platform on the front, so sometimes I just spread everything out there, and they sit in their chairs with the plate, and we just keep it real simple.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Very good. What do you put in your burgers? You mix anything in?
Yeah, I do like a little bit of. I do red onion, Montreal steak seasoning, maybe a little bit of chopped garlic too.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, super good. All right, what's your favorite place at the end of the day for a cold beer and a burger or whatever you like eating at the end of the day?
I mean, I think I'm a victim of convenience here, but we have the Tamarack Brewery right next to the shop. And
you do? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the guests come and stay in the dry fly apartments just above the Hackle, and so we might meet for a beer at the Tamarack, and then they just wander on home.
The Tamarack.
Tamarack Brewery. That's a great spot. There's so many good places though. There's Draftworks in town. There's the Top Hat just across the street. I think we have 20 breweries.
Really?
And none of them are bad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Has Missoula gotten as bougie as Bozeman?
Not yet. And thank goodness. I just became a homeowner, and the bank owns my home, but I could not have afforded a livable place in Bozeman. I'm not talking anything fancy.
Bozeman's it's blown out, huh?
$780,000 mean home price.
What? Oh my gosh. In Bozeman, really?
Yes. I was just down there. The amount of private jets at the airport, it's sad,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so Missoula, hopefully, you bought before the boom. I'm going to forget that.
Yeah. And, we don't have a famous ski hill real close, and I think that's maybe saving us. Get a little weather problems in the winter with inversion. So,
but you're a little warmer than Bozeman, aren't you?
Much warmer. We're a couple thousand feet lower.
Yeah, lower. Right.
We're way lower. Yeah.
Yeah. You ever hike up to that Big M above town?
You bet. Great views.
What goes on up there?
Oh, I mean, a lot of things. That's the most hiked trail in Montana.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, I remember a group of college kids carried a couch up there a few years ago. That was a lot of
just to sit on the couch for a while.
Just why not?
Those rocks up there weren't comfortable enough. You had to haul a couch up there. Oh, that's fantastic. Andy, thanks for being on the show. It's great talking to you.
You bet. You too.
Yeah, you bet. So how can people get in touch with you? Maybe talk about booking a trip or just learn a little bit more about Clark Fork.
Right. So the easiest way is to call the Grizzley Hackle Fly Shop and they'll get a hold of the manager, Rick. Absolute wealth of knowledge.
Okay.
And they can set you straight. And if you say, hey, I want to fish with Andy, you just request me. And that's the easiest way to go about it.
Hope you get some trips. You got some space this summer, or are you all booked up?
Got a little bit. Since COVID, we've been blessed to be busier than we know to do it.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But we're always looking for new guests, to get into the mill.
We'll find somebody to take you, I'm sure, right?
Yep.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, I wish you extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow, and I'm sure there will be many. And folks, thank you for listening. We'll be sure to post Andy's contact info on the Destination Angler show notes, and we're going to get some pictures of maybe his top fly picks and some really cool pictures of smiling people holding big fish on Clark Fork and a few other places. As always, you can DM me or email with comments and suggestions. And it's a new email address, shaig@destinationanglerpodcast.com. If you like the show, please share it with a buddy. That's how people find out about this. As always, our music is by Brothers Fountain. Hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you again soon, everybody. Tight lines.
Well, I'll go from the land to the shining sea. But I know there's more to life than what the eye can see.